remember my covenant. Therefore, say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people. Now, that's a great promise, isn't it? I will take you as my own people. Doesn't have to. Remember, God created us all. Believers or unbelievers, it doesn't matter. He created us all. And out of all of those people, he could have chosen anyone. But he says to them, I will be your God, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. And I will bring you to the land I swore with uplifted hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And I will give it to you as a possession. Why? Because I am the Lord. In other words, because I don't go back on my word. When I make a promise, I keep it. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And even though you have abandoned me at times, even though you have been sinful, even though you have fallen away, I still will keep my word. That's the God that we serve. That's amazing. You know, when we start talking about being a faithful people, we need to talk about the faithfulness of God. When it is faithfulness that we're looking at, even if it's in somebody like Abraham, it's more we need to talk about the faithfulness of God to someone like Abraham. So God reveals himself in three different ways. In his name, in his power, and in his plan. In his name, he says, I am who I am. Ayeh sur ayeh. I am who I am. In Hebrew, they dare not speak the name of God, and they dare not take that even across their lips, and so they abbreviate it. And if you want to write it in your notes, Y, H, W, H. We would say Yahweh, God. The great I am. And out of this, the amazing thing is that this I am, this eternal being, this one who created everything, this one who now was delivering his people, God chooses Moses. Chooses Moses to lead the deliverance. If there was ever a less qualified person to lead a deliverance, I don't know who it was. Do you remember the story? Moses killed an Egyptian. He murdered an Egyptian. He had been raised outside of his own people. He was no more Hebrew than you or I. He was Hebrew in name only, because he had spent his entire life in Pharaoh's palace, raised by Pharaoh's daughter, suffering all of the riches of Pharaoh. Besides that, he had a speech impediment. Some say he stuttered. I'm Moses. This is your great deliverer, who stood in front of the people, was to tell them that the great I am had spoken to him. He ran for his life. He was fearful. Married outside of his tribe, which was unheard of. All of these things probably disqualified him as a good leader. Probably disqualified him even in his own eyes from leading at all. And that's exactly who God chooses. God chooses the unlikely. He chooses on the basis of his own plans and not simply on the basis of outward appearances. And Moses certainly wasn't one of those people that you would have naturally chosen to be the leader. Why? I think Isaiah says it best in Isaiah 55. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts higher than yours. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and will achieve the purposes for which it's sent. I am is in control, and don't try to figure out his ways because they're way too high for us. One of the advantages of living with the director of children's ministries as she prepares for children in worship is I can see what she's doing. And I know that in her class, they're looking at a tapestry this morning. And they're looking at the back of that tapestry, and they're able to see all of these kind of isolated patterns and all of the knots and all of the things that don't seem to make any sense. And she's telling them about what it looks like and what it is. The only problem is she's the only one that can see that because it's facing her, not them. They just see a jumbled mess on the back, and then she turns it around. And then they can see there's a pattern. There's a plan. I am is more than just a name. There was also his plan, his mercies, his desiring to make for himself a great nation and to stick with it. He wasn't going to abandon the Israelites. He was going to keep them forever. And he does. And in his power, as Rose mentioned, Pharaoh's magicians were able to duplicate some of the things that Moses was doing. When Moses turned his staff into a serpent, they did that. Cool trick. Not so cool if you don't like snakes, and I don't. He also was able to do some others. But as the plagues went on, as the things got more severe, the magicians gave up. They went home. They couldn't copy it. On top of that, what they did in an isolated setting, they did as a David Copperfield magic trick right in front of you. But it didn't happen out there. When Moses did it, God made it happen all through Egypt. And those 10 plagues show the power of God. Now, in this time, unlike ours, there weren't any atheists. Everybody believed in God. It's just a question of which God they believed in. The Egyptians believed in the god Pharaoh. They believed in the power of all of these gods and spirits, and they worshipped a whole plethora of gods. But the people of Israel worshipped one. I am. Yahweh. Elohim. This was the God that they had worshipped through all of their ancestors. The most powerful God the world had ever known. And he demonstrated that power. 10 plagues. Let me run through them quickly. First of all, water to blood. Frogs. Gnats and lice. Flies. Livestock that are diseased. Boils. Thunder and hail, which strikes down all of the crops throughout Egypt. Locusts that eat up everything that's left. And darkness. And then our story comes full circle. Do you remember how our story started out? And Pharaoh was afraid of the proliferation of the Israelites. So what did he do? He killed all of the young children. That's That's what sets our story into motion, isn't it? That's why Moses' mother puts him in a basket and floats him down the Nile. And I didn't say